And look at that, we're on the wrong screen. Okay, now we're on the correct screen. Well, welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on August 24th, 2022 at approximately 6:35 a.m. PST. Well, figured I'd get started today. And the first thing I do want to acknowledge is today is quite seriously on my second anniversary, well, our second anniversary with that special someone. Okay. 2 years, today being the one we decided was the best way to look at it. Don't know 100% which day, so we just agreed on the 24th itself. That said, it is a long distance relationship, does require a lot of work. Yes, we've had complications, but very happy to acknowledge the fact that in 2 years we have never had even one argument. Not that I'm complaining. Okay, but that's just a side note. Okay, in all fairness, I return to, it's a very important note to me, but from your standpoint, not so much. Maybe. Anyway, I return to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind everyone in existence that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, now I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I live by. They're the ones I work with. Okay, this is why I know they work. Okay, and the philosophies of life I talk about are the ones I personally live by. Therefore, when I talk about them, the way I see it, if you're going to claim to be a spiritual guide, lead people away from fear. Lead people to a more cooperative, more, mutually beneficial existence. Like, just for instance, now I have no problem killing insects because, quite frankly, in my house, they just don't survive on the whole. Okay, now when I was a kid, I used to do other things with insects. Not the least of which is I'm sure some of you that live in the country can relate to this. It's not a good thing to relate to, by the way. I mean, like when I was a kid, I literally, we had a red ant's nest here, and about 50 yards away we had a black ant's nest, both harvester ants. And I remember very clearly one day picking up a shovelful of the red ants, and it might have been the black ones I picked up, but you'll get the idea. Picked up a shovel from one nest and dumped that shovelful onto another nest just to see what happened. Okay. The same magnifying lens that I burned the sign "I am worth it" out with. Okay. That same sign, or that same magnifying lens, I used to target ants with. Okay, now this is, in my opinion, wrong. To give you an idea how far I've come. Okay, yes, I will still kill ants in my spider. Good morning, Malo. How are you? But last night, I was sitting here, and I've got my window open, and I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden, this reasonable sized moth, just an average moth really, all of a sudden does an absolute dive bomb and runs into the side of my keyboard. Okay, kind of like a bird running into a window. And I looked at this thing, it's like, well, that must have hurt. So instead of killing the thing, I took this little letter opener that you've seen me play with. Okay, and using the end of it, because if I had touched the moth with my fingers, I had taken the dust off the wings, it couldn't have flown. I took this, and I moved him out from underneath the edge of the keyboard, and he, kind of shook his head, and away he went. It's really weird watching a moth shake their head. Okay, but, that's just the little side note before I get really underway here. the thing that I really desired to look at, today, we are taught to really look for and emphasize our differences. Okay, now this doesn't work. In case you hadn't noticed, society itself is taking one heck of a kicking because so many people are looking for ways to look different, to stand out as being different. And now they're quite frankly fabricating them. Okay, and with that in mind, what's happening is people are turning around and they're creating even bigger separations. But there's a couple of things that we have to realize. There are way more similarities in people. There's way more differences, but the similarities are the backbone of how society will evolve. And it's up to us to really start focusing on it. Now, just checking my volume here by looking at the thing that I've got. And okay, good. And we are up and running perfectly. There we go. Good morning, Robert. You could join us. The thing is, I look at it in very basic form. Okay. I don't worry about what's in your head because what's in your head matters. Absolutely. But let's start with the physical obvious issues. Virtually every human is born. They're born with, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. These are all similarities. Okay. And the thing you got to remember here, it's these things that determine. You look in the mirror, that's what you've got. Okay. If you look like that, you're classified as human. Everybody is, no matter their political, social, intimate interactions, doesn't matter what your skin color. If you've got those qualities, you're human. Now, yes, some people are born with deformities. Okay, if you're my age, you'll remember a period, well, actually a little older than me, you'll remember a period where thalidomide children were born. This was because doctors were playing around with things they didn't understand. And I can't fault the doctors for that. They really didn't have the capacity to understand. They didn't have the experience. So it really was true ignorance at that time. Now what they're doing is true stupidity in a lot of cases. And what mankind itself is doing is even more blatant. Okay, so we look at the similarities. We start with the physical. Okay, we start with the idea that, aside from some anomalies, you start with the idea when you're born, you either have male genitalia or female. It's that simple. That makes 2 genders. Okay, that's all. You can relate or identify with anything. You don't even have to agree with it. Okay, the reality is, whether you agree with it or not, you don't have to agree with it being called gravity. Okay, gravity's still going to have the effect. Now, the human genome is a binary system. In other words, it requires a male and a female to reproduce. It doesn't care if you're depressed. It doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you're rich. Okay, you require 2 genders to reproduce. It's that simple. So you got to get past this idea of what you identify as. Absolutely. What you identify as is important in your social makeup, in how you interact with people. But get past the idea that your gender is different. Okay, your gender hasn't changed. Study basic biology, you'll come to understand it, hopefully. Okay, so you've got that. Now let's take it all into one lump sum. Okay, every single one of you in time is going to die. And none of you are going to be taking, none of us are going to be taking the physical world with us. Nothing that you own is going with you into the next world. It's just not. Okay, so again, we have a similarity. Okay, so, and this is the things, these are the things we have to look at. Or at least it would be wise to look at. Okay, we're told as we get older, we will Ultimately, yes, YJ, it really is. You know, there's a saying in computer programming. Okay, garbage in, garbage out. Okay, now I do feel for doctors in this one. They're claiming, people are claiming there are in excess of 50 genders. Okay, well, how in tarnation is a doctor supposed to go, oh, this is your gender, when you're born? Bad news, kid ain't going to be able to tell you what their gender and what gender they're choosing until they're at least 3 or 4 years old. So what are you going to do? Refer to them as an it? Okay. It's the same as skin color. You may be a different skin color. Okay. And many of you probably are. Let's face it, every single one of you has a slightly different pigmentation layout. But skin color does not change who you are. It does not change the fact you're human. As it turns out, it does separate you into different races, which works. And honestly, Malu, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I like the way I saw it put on Facebook the other day. Right? If you look like a man, I'm going to call you a man. If you look like a woman, I'm going to call you a woman. You don't like it? Deal with it. Okay, I mean, that was the gist of the post. From my standpoint, I met a at the restaurant I go to, one person in there that had been hired. One of the original waitresses came up, and she was telling me who this new one was, and she goes, that girl, wait a minute, she doesn't like being referred to as that girl, right? I looked at her, I said, really? And she goes, yeah, she's one of these people that doesn't identify as one. And I'm like, yeah, so she's going, that girl, I don't know, she's new. She goes, I don't know, she's new. No, sorry, it's new. Understand, there are so many similarities. People, everybody, virtually everybody out there, okay, and you can't talk to the ones that didn't do it, okay, at least not in most cases. If you're a medium, you can. Everybody out there requires drinking. Okay, you require water for your body to run. That's pretty much the size of it. The funny thing is, YJ, bringing that brings to mind another post. Okay, this guy posts, he says, my son is trying a social experiment. Right. He says he's decided he's wearing a Ford shirt for the next 2 weeks just to see the reaction. Right. He says, so far, my son has been sworn at, screamed at, spit on, and basically called all sorts of, had all sorts of derogatory names used against him. And then there's a pause. He goes, I wonder what's going to happen when he leaves the house. Shakespeare put it best when he went, a rose by any other name is still a rose. It's an issue that absolutely. Another one there, Robert, that I noticed in Canada, and I don't know if this is still the case, but 20 years ago, my little brother worked for McGavin's Bakery. Okay, and McGavin's Bakery, they not only made McGavin's, but they also made Wonder Bread. Now, I don't know what it's like now, but at the time, he was working in the production department, and he goes, the only thing they do is they'll have a batch going through, they'll make a whole bunch of McGavin's bread, then they swap the bags, and they make a whole bunch of, they don't do anything to the mix. They just swap the bags. And they put Wonder Bread bags around them. Wonder Bread. Or the Wonder bags. And again, it's the same stuff in a new bag. Call it what you will. Okay. But nobody gets upset with anybody if you call Wonder Bread, if you call it, McGavin's, or if you call it brown bread. It's like, calling somebody by a different skin color. if that's their color, okay, there's something seriously wrong with the focus. I called one young girl, I referred to her as being blonde. Good morning, Wendy. How you doing? Glad you could make it. I referred to this girl as blonde, right? And her brunette friend looks at me and goes, "You're being racist." I said, "Would you care to explain to me how I'm being racist?" "Well, you called her blonde." I said, "Well, I'm pretty certain if my eyes are not completely screwed up, she's blonde, is she not?" "Well, yeah." "Then how, pray tell, is that racist? When you refer to somebody as black, okay, if they are black, they are black. Now, I'm going to say something that's really going to annoy some people. Okay, I have a tendency, and I know this, of taking things a little too literally. Okay, but when you look at in the dictionary, actually, let me pull that up just on principle. One of the advantages of having multiple screens is I can actually get away with this. Hey, where are we? I'm looking up from the dictionary standpoint. This is where I run into some problems. Okay. Is I look up the definition of retarded. Okay. Now, retarded says less advanced in mental, physical, or social development than is usual for one's age. Now, this is pulled out of the dictionary off of Google. Okay. Now, this says, matter of fact, it comes from Oxford Languages. So when I look at somebody and refer to them, not in an insulting way, but just saying they have to be retarded. The reality is, if you are not thinking as fast as the general population is, if you're not moving as fast, if you're not socially advanced as much, according to that definition, you are retarded. Okay, now there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, yes, you have to take a little more time perhaps, but it doesn't make you of any less value. Now, I keep getting told you can't use that word because it makes them feel bad. Everybody I've spoken to, like I speak to them all the same way. And the reality is, when you're dealing with, here's, Malo, I hate to bring this up because I agree with you there. I looked into this. Malu has just mentioned less than 90 IQ and 90 IQ. Right. Bad news from what I found out on the internet the other day. A decade ago, the average IQ of humans was 100 to 120. Okay. The average IQ, according to the information I found just a couple of months back, the average IQ of humans right now is 85. Okay. Now, this may give you an idea of just how well our education system is working. But we're all working under the same system. It's insane on occasion, but insanity being repeatedly doing something over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Matter of fact, I'm really kind of curious about that now. This is not the direction I was thinking of taking things, but what the heck? Let's just take a look at this. See, I'm looking at, now because of the fact I still work with paper dictionaries, but this I have learned how to use. But I will show you something. Here we go. Insane. In a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. Seriously mentally ill. Okay. Now, from my standpoint, there's a lot of people that fall under that category. Yeah. Doesn't it though, YJ? When I look at that, you look at the education system and what we are teaching the adults we're raising. Okay. Ignore the education system because they did. Take a look at what you're teaching the people around you. Okay. I take a look at it myself and go, okay, here's where the similarities are. Okay, there's all kinds of differences we can talk about, but let's focus on the similarities. Let's focus on the things that make people part of a society. Okay, laws are being passed that make absolutely no sense. Okay, because if laws are not put where they apply to everybody equally, we're going to have problems. Because I'm not entirely certain. People used to talk about raising the drinking age. Here's a similarity for you. If you've never dealt with alcohol in your system before, you're going to have a lower tolerance for it, in all likelihood. Okay, too much alcohol in anybody is going to screw up their coordination. Doesn't matter how much you drink, how often you drink. If you put too much for your system to compensate for, you're going to stagger. You're going to slur your words. Okay, these are similarities. Having somebody drinking way too much alcohol, if they are not treating other people poorly, okay, then you're actually standing in good shape. You know, from my standpoint, I'm looking at different ways where I can improve myself. Okay, it's funny. When I did the interview online just a little while ago, I was talking to somebody. They wanted to record it. It's like great, and I keep getting they kept saying, "Oh, you gotta keep your hands still because it really looks funny." Sad to say, I look funny. So the hands just kind of go where the arms point. But I will agree, if you can get your arms to point in one place and have your hands somewhere else, this is great. Okay. Yeah, now here's the thing, YJ. You've tested your IQ. Have you looked into how to improve your IQ? Okay. Now, what I have found out, and again, there are so many similarities in it. I am such a medical anomaly that a lot of it I ignore. I am happy thus far. I had the supplement that I picked up for my teeth. Okay, I have my fourth one today. And quite frankly, so far, no heart attack, no heart fluctuations. I'm happy with it. So I'll keep you posted. Right now, I'm still testing out whether it works before I start saying yes, it works. I had a migraine a few months back, and or not a migraine, a toothache. I had a toothache a few months back, and I kid you not, to take the edge off the pain, and my pain threshold apparently is kind of low, but to take the pain threshold and the edge off the pain, it took 14,000 milligrams of painkiller. Now this is just a suicide run. Okay, for most people, that's way too much. Worked for me. I took it the one day. The following day, I was down to under 1,000. Yeah, no, sorry, I was down to 2,000. The next day, I was off it altogether. But we have to look at it and go, okay, there's no saying too much of anything, is not good. So when we look at similarities, okay, it doesn't matter what, for instance, it doesn't matter what color you are, who you voted for. If you don't have any hair on your head, you're referred to as being bald. Okay, it doesn't matter what race you come from, what gender you are. If the hair is gone, you're referred to as being bald. Okay, and with that in mind, okay, again, you lose your hair, whether it's because you cut it off, you lost it because of for instance, alopecia, which is a tendency of just literally dropping all your hair off, or you end up with cancer. You're still bald. Okay, and we've got to realize that it is still the same thing. Now, granted, absolutely, people of different colors, of different genders are treated differently. People in different clothes are treated differently. It's what is called prejudice. Okay, but children are not born prejudiced. Adults are not born. They don't just suddenly become prejudiced. Okay, they get taught by their society, by the people they're spending time around, to be prejudiced, to be greedy. Okay, this is what we are teaching the society coming up behind us. And I will tell you this. I mean, there's a neat site. Okay, there's a neat site out there. Absolutely, it does, YJ. Okay, like from my standpoint, different heights do make people look at you differently. Absolutely. And this is a differentiator, certainly. But everybody has a differentiator. Okay. I will notice somebody really tall and somebody really short, but I still treat them exactly the same way. I remember walking through a store one day, and I looked at a woman, and I kid you not, she couldn't see over the second shelf. Okay, over the second upper shelf. You've got the bottom shelf, so I guess it'd be over the third shelf. She couldn't see over the third shelf. Now, I watched 3 employees walk by the end of the aisle, and this woman is standing there looking at the top. So I stopped, and I looked at her, and I went, "Vertically challenged, huh?" Right. And she looks at me, and I said, "What are you trying to get up there? If you don't mind my asking, what are you trying to reach up there?" So she told me. So I pulled the thing down, and I said, "Is this what you're looking for?" And she goes, "Well," I said, "No, you don't understand. I'm referring to literally, is that the item you were looking for?" So she goes, "Well, I really wanted the one next to it." I said, "Fine." So I put the one back up, gave it back to her, and she goes, "You don't mind?" I said, "Yeah, I asked you whether or not it was the right one because I wanted to say tough, suffer." I said, "No, I don't mind." I said, "You've got a very clear complication. I don't expect people in a wheelchair to stand up. Okay. I don't expect people. Absolutely, Malu, I'm not exactly going anywhere, and I don't think many people here are. Tall people have similar problems. You can't get into, you bang your head on everything. Some are quite literally so tall they have to duck to get in through a door. Okay. And, from my standpoint, I look at it this way. We all have, things apply to everybody. Now, here's one of those funny little things in traffic. There's 2 parts of traffic that everybody applying is supposed to follow. Okay. Regardless of regardless of what country you're in, it seems that if you see a sign with a red cross on it, people know that is medical, regardless of what country you're in. If you see a little sign of somebody sitting in a wheelchair, that is handicap stall parking. Okay, it means if you don't have an actual handicap, stay the heck out of it. Okay, but the reality is that people have so many similarities. In Western society, people count from 1 to 10, and it seems that's pretty much the same. Different languages, different words for the same thing. Okay, but the reality is people like to be acknowledged. They like to be respected. It doesn't matter what your income level is. Okay, because, when you take a look at it, whatever your income level is, whatever your comprehension is, okay, it doesn't make you any worse or any better as an individual. And this is why we have to look at the similarities. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're hungry, when a multimillionaire is hungry, they eat. Okay. I mean, I've had the luck. I'll call it luck. Okay, I had the experience of trying, even on my income. Like I said, I made last month I made 3,600. Okay, and yet when I was making under 2,000, I still had the experience of trying actual real caviar. Okay. Now I will tell you, I tried it once, and I will never go back and try it again because I don't like the stuff. Oh, but it's a chic thing to eat. This is what all the millionaires eat. That works out well. I don't have to worry about them. They can eat that. Okay. To me, now this is where it gets stupid. Okay. I tried caviar. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, YJ. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully, what I'm seeing, the way I'm seeing the world, will have some sort of an impact. And if I can help one person, it's a good thing. The reality is, only helping one person in today's world is not going to solve the problem. Okay, I tried caviar, and I don't like the stuff. Tastes way too fishy. Now, oddly enough, I like anchovies. Okay, and do not ask me to explain why I like one or the other. I suspect, in all fairness, I think it's likely the texture. Okay, I won't eat tapioca. And according to my dad, I wouldn't touch pablum. And in all fairness, I still won't eat cream of wheat. I don't like the texture of it. But the reality is everybody has likes and dislikes. Okay, everybody has things that they prefer and things that they don't prefer. Okay, we have to get away from this idea of going, if you don't like everything I like, exactly what I like, then there's something wrong with you. The reality is, in my opinion, if somebody is having a problem with somebody else's likes and dislikes, the problem isn't with the other person's taste buds. It's with the person that is having the problem with them. Okay. Well, and I agree with you wholeheartedly there, YJ. There's a lot of things in survival issue that you do. Okay. Virtually everybody has some fear or some phobia. Now, when I was growing up, I was absolutely terrified of horses, to the point I couldn't get within 15 feet of them. Okay. Now, the reality is, I didn't have to be around horses. I lived in the heart of the city, and they thankfully didn't have horses there very much. So I never bothered looking into getting it fixed. One day it went away. Don't know how, don't care how, it went away. But we have to realize, it is absolutely imperative that we realize that people are so similar in so many ways. I mean, regardless of what your income level is, my guess is this fine little hole here. Okay, never mind the shirt, but this little hole here. This is the one that you're going to put your head through. Okay, doesn't matter what your age, doesn't matter what your money, doesn't matter what your gender. My guess is you're going to put your head through this hole. Okay, or the shirt's going to be really uncomfortable. Okay, this is why you got these two little holes here. Is because most humans have two little things to fit through the holes. You've got two arms. Okay, when you're tired, you'll all sleep. You may fight the issue, you may go, and you may sleep at different times, but you will sleep. When you're hungry, you have to eat. These are the things we've got to start looking at. Okay. And much as we can certainly look at different forms of mathematics and what have you, okay, in any language, when people are counting, they always go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, they don't go. There's not a language that I know of. There is not a race of humans that I know of that goes 1, 3, 9, 2, 6. Can you picture what math would look like if you did that? Okay. Again, it is a similarity. Pronunciations and enunciations may be it may be different. Of course, now that I've got this funny little thing up here, okay, I'm literally looking up something, calling what the difference is. And this is where that curiosity thing comes in handy. The neat part about it is many people say, your pronunciation is wrong. Well, bad news. The word is pronunciation. Okay. It's just that simple. Okay, pronunciation is the way in which a word is pronounced. So the question I'm looking into, because it just literally came to my mind. Okay, there's another word called enunciation. Okay. And what I am looking here, what meaning of enunciation, there we are. The act of pronouncing words or parts of words clearly. Okay. Okay, that's where the difference is. Pronunciation is how you pronounce them. Enunciation is how clearly you pronounce them. Okay. So from that standpoint, that would be entertaining, would be interesting. I personally, when I'm working with numerology, I work with base 12. And I've seen people put base 12 on the internet. And flat out, what they're doing is they are literally modifying base 10, but they're still using base 10. Okay. But mathematics is one of these things. If you're using the same system, it will come out the same way. Okay. But we have to look at the idea that there are so many similarities that people can work with. When we start focusing on those, we will be far better off. Way, way, way better off than if we keep pointing out the differences and keep finding ways to say, hey, I'm better than you because I'm this different name. Okay. Well, let me tell you. There's a neat little story out there called Dick and Jane. Okay. Hopefully the educational system in its almighty wisdom. Actually, I'm curious because I see them doing such absolutely stupid things. But I'm gonna check something here just because it annoys me the way they do it. All I'm doing is typing in a question. Has the story Dick and Jane? Has the story Dick and Jane? Actually, that should be. It has the children's story. That was not what I wanted to see happen. I just hit the wrong button. Okay, let's try that again. And by the way, this is a live broadcast, obviously, so I'm not editing anything after this. As a children's story, Dick and Jane being banned. There are so many stories that are being banned that are absolutely insane. Okay. Oh. Somebody tried using Dick and Jane to, according to the internet here. Okay, the story of Dick and Jane got in touch because they wanted to discuss a controversy involving Food and Drug Administration. So it looks like it's been pulled off the curriculum. And the reality of it is, now we take a story like that. What I was getting at there. What I was getting at there is it was a very simple book. Just like the Dr. Seuss books were very simple books, the Berenstain Bears. Okay, they've sold hundreds of thousands of copies. Now, let me ask you this. They've sold those. Now, here's where you look at things a little differently. Okay, Dick and Jane was written in very simple English for children. This book here was written for adults in a very simple form. Okay, this one was written for adults. This is a novel. Okay, the author of those three books, are any one of them better than the other? Does this book, the fact it's written in more complicated English, does it make the author or the story any better or any worse? Okay. The reality is every one of you has a story to tell. Every one of you has experiences. This does not make them better experiences or worse experiences. Certainly, some of you have more traumatic experiences. But understand, trauma is a learned way of behavior. Okay. Now, if you think about it, when I was a young adult, I was held up at gunpoint. Now, normally, if somebody pulls a gun on you, people have one of two reactions. Either fight or run away. Fight or flight. Okay. Now, in my case, I had the gun pulled on me. And I just looked at the guy. I went, what? You going to kill me again? Now, this is not a normal reaction. But is it a better reaction? Certainly not. In most cases, it'll get you killed. In my case, the guy walked away. No more to the point, he looked at me and goes, again? I said, yeah, again. It's been done for. It didn't take. Right? And in my case, that was very real. Net result, instead of a robbery, I got a beer. Well, actually, in my case, I got a double rye ginger. But we have to look at things from the standpoint. Yeah, and, I got bad news for you. That doesn't end the confusion. Pronunciation will end the confusion. But the reality of it is they're the same term. When I'm writing, what I'm doing with the Yldrbacian Chronicles, outside of speech, I will write is not. I will write the full setups. Inside of the spinning in and out. My connection apparently is unstable, so I'll forgive me for that. I can't do anything about it anyway. Okay, there we go. And it would seem we're back because we just updated. Inside of speech, I will use contractions. Okay, outside of speech, and I'm talking about when I'm writing. But the reality is they mean the same thing. Okay. There are times, everybody does communicate better in their native language. And this is why I get a kick out of people when they move up here. Sometimes I'll get somebody, I'll go to say something, and they'll look at me and go, I no speak good English. Right. And okay, you're making the effort to speak English. I don't speak any other language fluently. Okay. I barely understand French. And it ain't the French they speak over in Quebec. Okay. And that is absolutely, Wendy, that really is the key to it. When you're able to look at everything you've gone through as building blocks to what makes you who you are today, that is your best way of looking at the world. The most efficient way, anyway, in my opinion. My other half keeps bringing up things. Well, I went through this. This is why I'm having trouble. I just don't want you thinking less of me. And I'm looking at it going, well, considering I'm thinking of you probably 24 hours a day or close to it, maybe once in a while an idea to think a little less. But what I have found out is that when you look at your own life and go, okay, this is how I got to where I am. The fact that I've been bankrupt does not make me any less valuable as an individual. It does make me any less likely to get ahead. From what I gather, Donald Trump, and I know that name has all kinds of implications to people, but he went bankrupt 4 or 5 times minimum before he finally got ahead. The nice part about it from my standpoint is real simple. When you look at people and go, okay, that's the way you are. Now, I'm either going to accept you as is or I'm not. But this is not something that people can afford anymore to focus on. You're not identical to me. You don't believe in the same God I believe in. Well, probably not. I believe in a God. Absolutely, I believe wholeheartedly in God, and probably more so in Jesus than most people do. But do I care whether you believe in the same outlook? No. What I care about is whether you treat people with decency, with respect, whether you treat people the way you desire to be treated. Okay. And I see some appalling behavior, appalling displays of this. Okay. And I found, I remember I dated a woman one day, and she claimed to be really, really, really open-minded. She was non-judgmental. We walked into Denny's. She was a chef, professional chef. We walked into Denny's. The first words out of her mouth were, "This place is a dump. It is not set up properly at all. Where are the place settings?" We are talking Denny's, people. Right. And then she started in on the poor waiter when he got there. And I just said, no, scrap it. Thanks very much. Thank the waiter for his time. And says, I'm not sticking around. You want to have coffee here, you're more than welcome. I'm not, period. Right. Needless to say, we didn't get together. But we have to look at people and really be aware that what you're dealing with, okay, people are people. We have similarities. Okay, take a look at the song by the Carpenters. Song is recorded in 1973. Okay, called Up with People. I strongly suggest, and there's very few songs I'll recommend people listen to. Okay, that one has a message that is universal. Okay, we have to start looking at the similarities. If we do not, society is going to continue to degrade, just like what you're seeing with people's lack of responsibility, their lack of motivation. Okay, people are focusing so much on the negative side of what's going on and the differences they're striving to create, and they're succeeding. There are massive wedges that are being punched in. Now, why the so-called education system is letting this happen? Good morning, Chad. How you doing? Glad you could join us. The fact that, myself, I'm on YouTube. Okay, obviously, I am not a big, what people call a YouTuber. Okay, Chad here also does a podcast. Okay, and the reality of it is, this does not make either one of us any better than one of you that is at home and just listens in or ignores it altogether. It does not put us in better shape. It doesn't make us more valuable. It may make us more annoying. But the good news there is, it's like I've told people. I make every single person I meet happy. Some of them by showing up, most of them by leaving. Okay. I get asked my opinion, and quite often I'll look at the person and go, you don't want my opinion. Which is so much better than, if I want your opinion, I'll beat it out of you. Okay. I'm a pacifist. Okay. When you read the books, when you read the Yldrbacian Chronicles, you'll find that I do see things in a very violent fashion, especially when I'm writing. But I'm a firm believer that if you're going to look down on people, there's only one viable reason to look down on them. And that is if you happen to be taller than them, or if you're at a point above them. And by all means, look down on people. I don't think you're going to see them. Okay. But by all means, look down on them for that reason. Not based on how much money they've got, not based on how much alcohol they can drink, not based on how loud their voice is, or how many swear words they can get out in a single sentence and still make it make sense. We all have our differences, absolutely. But until we start focusing on the similarities we have, until we start focusing on that, I was just noticing something really odd. I don't look at myself in the mirror for a reason. But the way my hair is sitting here, the way it drops down here, right? When you look at that, it almost looks like I'm wearing a headband over top of it. I'm not. Okay, it's just the way the hair is. But I'm just noticing this going, that looks really odd. Good morning, Terry. Glad you can make it. We have to look, that was kind of a sidetrack, but what the heck? We have to look at the similarities, at the misinformation that we're being taught, and put it aside. Okay, you start with the obvious issue. Since every one of you out there, now I refer to people as children, and understand, if I look at a senior citizen as in somebody actually older than me, and there's a lot of them, when I look at somebody older than me, a grandmother, a grandfather, doesn't matter, I still refer to them as children, and I've had some people get absolutely upset about it, and I'm like, you had a mother, you had a father. Even if you're born in a petri dish, you had a mother and a father. If you're adopted, you still had a mother and a father. It's that simple. That makes you a child. Now, everybody will get older as time goes on, but it is up to you as to whether you actually get old. Now, for me, I was told as you get older, your body will start to break down. You'll end up with your eyes collapsing altogether. You gain extra weight. You get arthritis. Well, let's see. I don't have arthritis. I was diagnosed with diabetes, and I might still have it. I don't know. I don't really care. My eyesight is improving. Lower now than it was 15 years ago. So this issue of as you get older, you will break down. Yes, it happens. But the massive majority of it happens, in my opinion, because we are told as you get older, you will break down. Now, the other side of that is, scientifically speaking, it was proven quite some time ago, and had nothing to do with the nationality, and had nothing to do with who people were crawling into bed with. But apparently, according to scientific studies, every 7 years, your entire body, every cell in your body is replaced. Now, with that being said, there is no functional reason why you should have to permit your body to collapse. Your nerve senses should go down. Your reaction time should slow down. There's no functional reason why it should. Not in my opinion anyway. Aside from the amount of toxins and poison we're putting in. Left to take off. I just can't afford to die yet. Besides that, my other half told me that she'd kill me if I died on her. Now, I don't know what she's going to do if I die beside her, but, the reality is there is a lot, like I'm 59 right now, but my target, and I don't know if I'm going to make this, and some of you may not be around long enough for me to make it, but I'm targeting an age of 137 at least. And yes, we are talking about 80 years down the road here. Okay, roughly. Do I have every intention of getting there in a functionally healthy body? Absolutely. This is why I'm changing the way I'm looking at the world. This is why I'm getting rid of the junk. Now, like I said yesterday, I think it was yesterday I said it. I don't know. Where are we here? Come up to that. Move around to that. And there it is. Okay, yesterday when I put this list together, I love my computer. It works so nicely, it's nice and quick. I had, when I started, I had 354 pockets. Shelves, drawers, cupboards to clear out. I'm getting rid of the clutter. Okay, so I broke the whole 9 yards down into 354 different pockets. Okay. So the reason for that is I don't desire the clutter in my life anymore. This doesn't mean you've got to clear yours out, but I will tell you, we all have the same problem. In your house, regardless of how neat and tidy it is, regardless of whether you've got you doing it, your kids cleaning it, or you've hired a maid to do it, doesn't matter. The place still has to be cleaned. Everybody has to have their house cleaned. If you don't, then you get bugs in your house, you get extra illness and what have you. Heck, they found out the hard way when the Black Death came through. Okay, oh, look at that. Our film has frozen again. They found out the hard way that when the Black Death came through, people that kept things cleaner were healthy. Okay, now I am not a good housekeeper. Okay, but everybody in existence, every human that you know, has the same issue with their house. They still have to clean it. They still have to sort it out. This is just the reality. Now, that's whether or not you're the one doing the cleaning, or your kids are, or you bring a stranger in, you hire somebody. It doesn't matter. The job still has to be done. And the reality is, when we're talking about a job being done, that old saying, honest day's wage for an honest day's work, does not specify whether you're male, female, child, adult. If you're doing the job, if you've got somebody doing a job for you, pay them what the job is worth, not based on what their gender is. Because I will tell you, I've made the mistake of hiring people, or of misgauging people. Okay, I was raised to believe that the men are physically stronger, and sometimes most of them are. Okay, but I will tell you, the one lass I know, she's an MMA fighter. You would not want to get hit by this woman. Okay, the reality is she doesn't look like it on the street. You wouldn't know it on the street, but I will tell you will if you ever make a mistake. But I made the mistake of hiring people. I was under the understanding that males were stronger on the whole. Well, I tell you, they might be, but I used to hire a group of men to move stuff for me. Then one day I couldn't get the people because it was way down the road. I ended up hiring a company called, I hired a company that was owned and run by only women. Okay. So I hired them. They came in, did the job, bang up with less effort, with less stress to me than anything else. Okay. Because they came in, did what they were told. The fact of the matter is, whether you're male or female, no matter who you identify as, no matter what color your skin, we are all very similar in configuration. If we weren't, blood transfusions wouldn't work. Okay. The reality is, you'll notice, okay, and again, I'm going to go back to this because it annoys me that people are being this stupid, and I do call it that, which is probably going to upset some people. But here's the thing: stupidity to me is if you know better and you're doing it anyway. Okay, can you picture what's going to happen in the medical profession if we carry on this idea that there are now 50 some odd genders? How are the scientists ever going to work on gene therapy to cure anything? Okay, or even to cope with it? Okay, if you can no longer rely on basic biology, okay, and you're going to the state of mind, let's try the other side. We'll take this to an extreme. What if a dog doesn't identify as a dog? Okay, are you all of a sudden going to say it's not a dog? Okay, I had a client years ago that was priceless. They phoned up because they had a horse. It was triple crown bloodline. And when it was running, when it was just out there practicing, it would run like the wind. And, they call me because they get down to the track to race. The gun would go off, the gates would drop, and the net result was the thing would saunter out of the gates and just look around, right, while all the horses ran down the way. Well, these people had spent a fortune on this horse to start with. And they asked me, they says, what's wrong with the horse? We can't find anything wrong. We've done all the medical. I said, the horse wants to eat with the family. He feels, she's being neglected. And it's like, well, I can't, we've got a house. We can't feed her with us, So she eats in the barn. I says, look, you want her to run. It's no skin off my nose. You want her to run. You've got a pot sink inside your kitchen window, right? And the woman goes, yeah, but how do you know? I said, let's not get into that. You've got a pot sink there. Open the window up, throw the hay into the pot sink, and let your horse eat breakfast with you. Well, they had nothing left they could do, so they turned around and did that. The very next race, they took the horse to the next race. Gate went down. The horse was around the first corner before the rest of the horses got halfway down the line, right? And she goes, and the woman comes back to me and goes, "How, pray tell, did you figure that out?" I said, that fuzzy, that four-legged hoof friend of yours believes it's your kid, and is absolutely intent on being treated as such. This is why I refer to all people's pets as fuzzy four-legged or fuzzy scaled, fuzzy feathered, kids. That's what they are. And that is how people treat them. And you'll notice if you try and put them in silly outfits, they'll complain as much as kids will. Okay. But we have to start looking at people as equals, not as absolute. And we're not talking about having the same social standing. I'm talking about having the same viable outlook, the same viable value. Okay, what you have in your pocket, what you wear, whether or not you've got tattoos or not, whether or not you've got tattoos or piercings, none of these make you worse. Okay, as I'm certain some of you can relate to, I used to get called Four Eyes because I wore these. Now, the reality of it is, if these were eyes, then I should be able to put them back here and be able to see there. Okay, but it doesn't work that way. There are all sorts of things that you can pick on people for because they're different than you. But ask yourself this. Is your comment to them, is your derogatory approach to them actually benefiting you, them, or anybody else? The only functional thing I've found to do for people, and I've called people on it, and because as I got older, I came to understand that when people look at you and call you down, I just looked at them and went, I got to the point where I'd look at people as they were insulting me and go, do you feel better? Of course, they'll look at you and go, well, what do you mean? Well, the way you're treating me, the way you're talking down to me does not make me feel good. So I'm hoping it's doing something for you. Okay. Keep in mind that and I saw it posted the other day on Facebook. It used to be people had all these thoughts that went through their minds, right? And it wasn't spread all over the internet. Now everybody and their dog is posting things on the line. I do mean that quite literally. Okay. But thoughts are being tossed onto the open air, and people are getting their feathers in a ruffle. Now, the reality of it is everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses, but we also all have similarities. Okay. Virtually everybody desires to be treated with respect. Okay. Everybody pretty much desires to have their voice heard. Okay. So we do have to take a look at this. Now, before my throat seizes completely here, okay, I tried doing this the other day, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I can feel it starting to seize. So this being said, if you like the video, do give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, and please pass this message on to everybody, because it's going to take all of us to change this world. There's even a nice little convenient button in the bottom right corner of your screen that makes it easier to subscribe. But I'm going to call it a day before my throat totally seizes here. And I will be back again. Okay, but until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.